Hey, so hello there. This is Mr. Corabi from the Arts Academy Benjamin Rush, and this is a hopefully relatively quick 15-minute or less video going over the STD Summary Slideshow for our class. The purpose of this video is to be able to show you a summary slideshow that goes along with everything that we've talked about in class. So it's on the sexually transmitted disease page of my main website. And when you click on that little box up there, it brings it full screen. Now, I'm going to tell you that there are much more detailed videos, and I'll show you where some of those are at now, much more detailed than this, but this is a brief summary for the purposes of my own students who want to be able to see things, just hear what specifically I would say about the video. So here it is. Majority of this is text only. There are no images that you have to be like cringing over on this particular slideshow. There's no pictures of STDs. So sexually transmitted diseases are diseases that come from infections that are spread from a person to person through sexual and close contact. The vast majority of these diseases come from, and I'm going to go back to the website for a second, the vast majority of them are spread through contact with the genitals, semen, vaginal fluid, or the anus by other genitals, hands, or mouths. Some are also caused by blood infections, such as HIV and hepatitis B, and can be spread through contact with an infected person's blood, and some STDs can be spread via indirect contact, so contact with a object that has semen or vaginal secretions, or discharge. Discharge is a symptom of some of the STDs. The medical community really uses the term sexually transmitted infection because they're talking about it's an infection before it evolves into an incurable disease. So if you have if you have chlamydia or gonorrhea, then it can be easily treated, but it doesn't necessarily cause a disease in the body that you have on a long term. There are 20 known STIs, over 20 known STIs, and the vast majority of new infections each year, over 50% of them, are in people ages 15 to 24. So that equates to about 1 in 4 high school students that will contract an STI at some point. But a little note about statistics, keep in mind that it says 50% of all new infections each year. So if there are 100 people and 51 people get an infection of for a sexually transmitted disease, then there's the over 50%. That obviously makes sense, but it also makes it so that the same person could get 2 infections each year. So maybe somebody is infected with chlamydia in January of one year, and then in July they get infected with chlamydia again, a second infection. It was cured and it was treated with antibiotics, but it was a completely second infection. So that person counts twice in the data. So this isn't a raw number. This doesn't mean that 1 out of every 4 high school students, even though that's what the data seems like it would interpret, what it means is 1 out of 4 new cases. All right, I wrote it the way it said on the CDC, but I read the disclaimer, and that's what it means, okay? The 5 main causes of sexually transmitted infections are bacteria, viruses, protozoa, parasites, and fungus. We're pretty much not ever going to talk about the fungus-caused ones because they're sort of just like yeast infections and athlete's foot. They can be spread from person to person, though, with close intimate contact. They are easily cured by medicated creams, but again, they're not super common in this day and age. There's 2 caused by parasites. There's 1 caused by a protozoa. There are 2 extremely common spread through bacteria. There's 3 main ones from bacteria, and then there's 4 very common virus-caused sexually transmitted diseases. The virus-caused sexually transmitted diseases cannot be cured, but they can all be treated. Some of them can be fatal. And some have vaccines to prevent you from getting the infection in the first place. And all of the rest can be cured if they're caught fast enough. So the importance of testing is extremely important. This slide allows you links to the CDC STD fact sheet, and this is a list of STDs from beforeyouplay.org. That's the other main site other than the CDC that we use for information at school. So here's a chart for you to get into your notes. You can screen capture or just save the picture if you want to. Here are the 4 main virus-caused STIs. You have the human papillomavirus, which there is a vaccine for. The vaccine covers the majority of HPV virus strands that cause both genital warts, which is the main symptom, but also prevent cervical cancer. And it's very interesting to me that a virus can cause cancer because viruses are communicable diseases. They can spread, and cancer is generally not a communicable disease, but it's true. So it's important for you to really consider whether you need that vaccine or not. If you are sexually active, you definitely should be getting the vaccine. If you plan to be sexually active soon, you should. And many of you started getting these vaccines when you were like 13 or maybe even as early as 11. The herpes simplex virus, that's a very common STD. HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus, that's the virus that causes AIDS. There is no cure for HIV. You need daily, lifelong treatment to be able to prevent that from getting worse. And if you don't continue the treatment, it will eventually be fatal, either directly or most of the time indirectly, by you dying from a different infection. And then, of course, hepatitis B, which is a liver inflammation and is extremely dangerous. The 3 main bacteria-caused STDs are syphilis, gonorrhea, and chlamydia. Syphilis is common in Philadelphia in the homeless population, specifically the male homeless population. It's not that common around most of the rest of the country outside of that demographic, but it is the number of cases in 2017 did rise from 2016. Chlamydia and gonorrhea are the 2 most spread bacteria-caused STDs in the country. That's why they're 1 and 2, just like HPV is the most spread virus-caused STD in the country. Chlamydia and gonorrhea, both of them have similar symptoms. They're both, or they can both be asymptomatic. They're easily treated by antibiotics, but you need to get tested to be able to get the treatment. Trichomoniasis is a protozoan-caused STD. It is the most common STD in some parts of the country. In Philadelphia in 2017, it was the 3rd most STD in the city. So it's a protozoan cause that can also be treated. And then the 2 parasite ones are pubic lice, commonly called crabs, and scabies. In 2010, the prevalence of sexually transmitted infections in the high school age students in Philadelphia that they found in free clinics prompted the Department of Health to offer free STD testing for the 2 most prevalent bacteria infections in Philadelphia. Both of them can be cured with early testing, and that's really, really important. It's also important to remember that they can both be asymptomatic, and both can be fought off after a while with a healthy person's immune system, but while you have them, whether you know you have them or not, they can be spread. And without treatment, they can have long-term ramifications, including sterilization, infertility, and other problems within the reproductive systems. Chlamydia is the fastest spreading STI in Philadelphia. In some high schools, unfortunately, more than 50% of the school population has been infected with chlamydia, according to the Department of Public Health. And it really comes down to, how do you prevent sexually transmitted diseases? Well, the number 1 way to protect yourself against a sexually transmitted infection is to not have sex. So abstinence is the number 1 prevention method. If you're going to be sexually active, you need to take care of these things. First, you need to have serious, close, committed relationship. Less partners means less exposure. So for most people, that's going to be a monogamous relationship, one-on-one. You're only having sex with the same partner all of the time. Neither of you are cheating on each other. Neither of you are straying. For other people, you may have a less traditional relationship where you're in a polyamorous relationship and you may or may not be sexually intimate with more than one person on an ongoing basis. In this case, if if the 3 or 4, however many people are involved in this relationship, stay closed and they do not have sexual relations with anyone else, again, you limit your number of chances. But because there's extra partners, you still increase your risk because you don't necessarily know the history of each one of your partners. So communication is key. And furthermore, you also have open relationships nowadays, so that completely ruins this and this safety mechanism. Use barrier protection. That includes latex or poly condoms. That can be internal or external condoms during any type of intercourse or penetration. And you also use condoms or dental dams during oral sex. Get yourself tested. Most articles say at least yearly. You can get this during your regular routine physical. The HIV testing protocols suggest that if you're highly sexually active, that you get tested each season: fall, winter, spring, and summer. How do you get tested? There are the free testing days within the public high schools in Philadelphia. You can also get tested from regional clinics. There's a Get Tested video. There's Get Yourself Tested page on MTV. Why is it important? And if you go back to the website, there's an entire section about how to get tested and where to get tested for free. More ways to prevent. Just talk about it with your partners, your friends, your doctors, your health teacher, your family. Be open with your parents and let them know that you need help being educated with this. Get educated, not only by asking the people up here, but also by going to the websites that are on here, reading about them, watching videos, trying to understand how to best protect yourself. Eliminate any sort of body fluid exchange. Avoid sharing objects that may spread the diseases. Let me move this up to get that on the bottom. And use medical intervention for prevention if necessary. So vaccines, for example, and checkups and treatments. All right, so that's all there is for this slideshow. It says click here to open in your browser an additional slideshow. I'm going to show you where to find those on your own in a minute if you're not interested in just clicking, but I will click on it for a second. It's going to start off looking exactly the same. And as you progress, it'll be a little bit different. And there'll be pictures included. And each one of the diseases that I did a quick summary about today, it will go and give you more information. But to go back, I will remind you one last time. And I will remind you one last time in summary that the STIs in the USA and the pathogen that caused them, most of them are caused by viruses or bacteria. The virus ones cannot be cured. They can all be prevented. There is a vaccine available for HPV and hepatitis B. HIV and hepatitis B can both be fatal if left untreated. HPV can cause cervical cancer, which can be fatal if you contract it and you leave it left untreated. HSV, herpes simplex virus, keeps returning. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis are the bacteria-caused STDs. Chlamydia and gonorrhea can both be cured easily through antibiotics. Trichomoniasis can also be cured through treatment. And then the parasitic-caused STDs. Thank you. Okay, and if you want to get additional information concerning sexually transmitted diseases, then you can just go up to the units, click the human sexuality page. This is the STD page that we're on right now. There's two ways to do this. You can click here to go to specific STDs, or you can click here specifically about HIV. You can also use the menu, so I'm going to choose to use the menu. On the page that says specific STDs, as you scroll down, there's a more detailed slideshow, much more detailed than the one that I just went into. There's a link to the Get Yourself Tested campaign, which is also on the regular STD page. And then as you go down, it gives you information about each specific disease. So the top 4 diseases are the most prevalent in Philadelphia and the United States. And there's the title of the disease is here, followed by the STD information page from the CDC, the STD information page from beforeyouplay.org, And then there's 3 videos from various sources, and it tells you the sources in parentheses on about that specific disease. As you scroll down, you have chlamydia, gonorrhea, the 2 most prevalent bacteria-caused STDs in Philadelphia. HPV, the most prevalent virus-caused STD in the Philadelphia area. Human papillomavirus. Trichomoniasis, the most common STD in the country in some areas, but in Philadelphia it's not as common as chlamydia and gonorrhea and HPV, but it's still common. So that's right there. Herpes, the herpes simplex virus, which is the most common virus-caused STD outside of HPV. And that's when it starts getting different. So then for the little bit less common ones, there's 2 videos to go with that. Hepatitis B is the next one, syphilis, and we skipped HIV, don't forget, there's an entire other page. On the bottom, there's all these others. If you're interested in looking at any of the other major STDs that you can look at on your own time. If you're interested in the HIV page, the entire page is devoted to HIV and AIDS. You can see the table of contents up here. As you scroll down, the first section is a comprehensive overview. It's the same slideshow, but there's part about HIV on there towards the back. And then, of course, there's a HIV 101. This is a 4-page official PDF from the CDC. You can scroll through it just like I'm doing here, or you can click on it and make it larger and pop it out on a PDF view for yourself. It explains what HIV is if you're interested in learning more about that. Then there's several comprehensive overviews. There's a lot of information out there about HIV. This is the CDC's fact page. This is an entire portal about nothing but HIV. There's all kinds of information there. Both of them are very comprehensive. This is the beforeyouplay.org page. This is helpstopthevirus.com. And when it says stop the virus, a lot of people think COVID-19 because that's what's happening in 2020. But they're talking specifically about HIV. And there is a worldwide epidemic ongoing with HIV and AIDS since the very early 80s and possibly the late 70s. So it's not as popular right now to talk about, but it is still an extremely dangerous disease that is highly infects millions of people each year in the world. There's a YouTube playlist on HIV and AIDS, and then AIDS.gov, the National AIDS Information page. This section is all about testing and prevention. So there's a bunch of different things about testing and prevention of HIV. There's an infographic here. There's a few articles here for your enjoyment. Education. There's a video here about what PrEP is, talking about prevention, and a couple fact pages. Then when you go down for just the facts, there are statistics. Here's the HIV 101 graphic, page 1 again. This is a detailed article about how it can spread. There are 4 different videos talking about the facts about that. When you just scroll down further, there's more articles, real life stories of people with HIV, HIV treatment, and are people actually being cured, and things like that. Some articles concerning that same thing, and then a history of the virus and AIDS in America. One specific page devotes to Philadelphia. So, an entire page devoted to HIV and AIDS, easily the most dangerous sexually transmitted disease, and another page devoted to all sexually transmitted diseases that are prevalent in a society. I forgot to show this to you before. You can also directly click the link. So you go to this page and you're like, hey, I don't want to see everything. I specifically want to learn information about trichomoniasis. Then it goes down to that page. So thank you for joining us, and I hope that this is helpful for you. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, and or see me in class. Bye.